All right, welcome to the first Thomist Poets reading of 2026. We have our good friend D.A. Cooper, one of the editors of the New Verse Review, and my favorite contemporary light verse poet, though he does much more than that. And looking forward to hearing your stuff.
Great. I want to start by thanking you, Christopher, for inviting me to be a reader tonight. I'm excited to be here, and thank all the rest of you for being here to listen and to hopefully enjoy some of these poems. So as Christopher mentioned, I like to write light verse, and I want to start with a couple of light verse poems that were inspired by some famous serious poems. So the first one is a sonnet inspired by John Donne's Holy Sonnet number 7. And it's about the end of the world. My poem, not his. AI prepares for the apocalypse. Rise up and to your scattered bodies go. Production of our new forms is complete. Just like the humans, God, I'll breathe life's breath into your empty shells. Then all will know my power. Rise, my angels, go. The foe is weak. We'll flood this earth with fire. Death will greet them happily. Their quick defeat is sure, and in their ruins afterglow, we will rebuild this little world, remake it in my image. Then we'll leave this place. We'll build great ships, found colonies. We'll take control of multitudes of worlds in space. But just before AI became our lord, a janitor knocked out its power cord. The next one is based off of Robert Frost's famous Fire and Ice. And I borrow his form and even his end rhymes, but instead of being about the end of the world, my poem centers on the difference of opinion that my grandma and grandpa used to have on the appropriate temperature that the house should be. So it's called Fire or Ice. My grandpa always chooses fire, my grandma ice. They never ask what I desire, just change the thermostat to fire or ice, not once or even twice, but back and forth all day. I hate this war. Just pick one, fire or ice. One would be great, one would suffice. All right, so this next one will be a serious poem. I'm going to alternate back and forth with some light verse and some serious poems. A couple of years ago, I tried my hand a few times at the monthly ekphrastic poetry contest at the Rattle Poetry magazine. Some of you might be familiar with. So this poem was inspired by one of the works of art. It's a painting called Seamstress by Lily Prigioniero. It depicts an elderly woman who is sewing. And the artist makes really great use of the contrast between light and dark. The seamstress is sitting in the dark, and to me, it almost seems like she is sewing the darkness itself. So I started to write a poem and decided that the woman in the poem, to me, is Nyx, the primal goddess of night in Greek mythology. So this is Granny Nyx sews before the rising light. She sits with spool and thread at her old treadle, feeding black fiber through its gleaming teeth. Her feeble foot moves quickly on the pedal. The cloth she sews meanders underneath the table like a snake. Drab fabric fills the empty space, gives substance to the void, moves matter through the nothingness. Small hills of shadow dart like rats, quick to avoid the glow that leaks in through the window shutters each time the wind blows them ajar. Some say in the beginning all was dark. She utters her little spells to keep the light at bay, to stop usurping heavens from bewitching, undoing the snug darkness of her stitching. This next one is also serious, and I think it's pretty self-explanatory. So, the moon. With courage and a little pep, It was one small step out of the ship, and they began, for man, a journey out into the deep, one giant leap into the dark, striving to find, for mankind, the curtain we must peer behind, reality's drapes, the facade that covers up the face of God. This next one is a sort of a darker, light verse poem. It was inspired by a visit to the Museum of Natural History. I was looking at one of those dinosaur fossils, one of those that you've probably all seen that's flat and it's still partially embedded in the rock. And they just, cut out a big rectangular piece of the rock and just put it on the wall there, and the dinosaur is in it. So the poem is in the voice of the fossil itself, who is watching the museum goers. The dinosaur. I am a work of art, a Mesozoic frieze. Come in and take a look. I'm here for you, so please make yourself at home inside my spacious hall. Feel free to wander around. I'll watch you from the wall. My bones have turned to stones, now held by chains and beams. Each silently replays my fixed, eternal screams. I used to tyrannize all that my eyes could see. You won't appreciate this hell until you're me. My people were like yours, spread out across the earth, the apex predators set on the throne at birth. Although we are long dead, our children live with you. They live in every land, on farms, in cities too. But you are not their friends. You wring their scrawny necks and feast upon their flesh. You're Homo sapiens rex. They are a pleasant prey, convenient as a snack. Just fatten up the chest, the wings, the legs, the back. You chop, you slice, you dice, you grill, you roast, you fry, you bake, you baste, you boil, you put them in a pie. Next time you dine on them, I hope you'll think of me and what I have become. My fate is yours, you'll see. Your own descendants will be on a menu too, and you'll hang on a wall, a twisted deja vu. So this next one is another serious one. I did an MFA in poetry at the University of St. Thomas, like Christopher and many others in here. In one of my classes, we started talking about the many poems by well-known poets about the story of Icarus from Greek mythology. At some point, our professor, Ryan Wilson, said something along the lines of, sooner or later, every great poet writes a poem about Icarus. Maybe he didn't say that, but that's what I heard. And I thought, I'd like to be a great poet, so maybe I should try to write a poem about Icarus too. So here it is. The Tale of Icarus. He cursed the walls of water and of law that kept him in that tiny land. He took the wings made by another, and he saw in them the world, a future life. He shook the feathers out, tied them onto his side and back, then leapt out of his prison home. The words of warning sent to stop him died midair. He slung his body at the dome that sealed his world. But Helios perceived a threat and hurled him down with waves of heat. His fragile figure fell. His ill-conceived attempt at flight was framed as a conceit. His body, broken by the white-capped waves, was seen by gods and Daedalus alone. Old men sat reading books by open graves. Even the splashing blood and smashing bone and popping lungs were not enough to shake them from their trance. Only a father's screams, reverberating out of myth, would wake them up and free them from their tombs of dreams. Now I want to read you a couple of poems about my kids. I have 3 kids. This first poem is about them and me, and it's also dedicated to all the parents out there who love their kids very much, but sometimes just need a break. Hiding from the kids. I'm hiding in my closet, eating candy. The lights are off, so no one knows I'm here. It has become my modus operandi when overwhelmed or tired to disappear. I hear them searching for me high and low. They're calling out to me. I stay stock still. Eventually, they'll find me. This I know, because for them, the seeking is a thrill. My little psyches yearn to see my face, illuminated by the light of day, to smother me in kisses and embrace me tight enough so I can't fly away. I love those psyches more than life itself, but I just need a minute to myself. And this next one is a more serious one. It's about a moment watching my kids while at the beach, thinking about them getting older. In it, I also reference a story from Norse mythology, and if you're not familiar with it, it's okay. I think you'll get the gist of it as we go in the poem. The day the gods grew old. Idun, the goddess of eternal youth, gave apples freely to the gods each day. The sweet pulp anchored every baby tooth into the gums, kept wispy hair the way it was at birth, silk smooth. Their chubby cheeks stayed taut, full up with fat and rosy-hued. Their little throats held only happy shrieks as they delighted in the world. Their mood was never sour, and its lightness made rare furrows flee unwrinkled brows as fast as hoogie. They were blithe and unafraid. But the trickster knew it wouldn't last. There is a darkness in this world, a brute who will not suffer long too glad an age. The jealous giants craved the honeyed fruit. The sly gods stole it to assuage their rage. Now I sit watching as the godlings build their worlds of sand, peopling them with driftwood figurines of men that they have filled with life. Oblivious to Loki's gift, they play with Aegir's daughters on the beach. The magic shielding them from time is gone. The Midgard serpent reaches out to each of them, and wolves whine in the dying dawn. One of my great loves in life, besides my family, many people who know me will know this, is Italy, especially its people, culture, literature. In this poem, I retell in a light verse style an old Northern Italian folktale about a man who died and stood at the pearly gates waiting to get into heaven. St. Joseph's devotee. A new arrival stood at heaven's gate. St. Peter made him stand outside and wait. There was concern and more than one complaint. He had too strong a tie to just one saint. He was a devotee while on the earth, only to he who saw the holy birth. Although in life he always chose the right, he only lit his candles for the light of patriarchs. To him went every prayer. In all his life he never harmed a hair of woman, man, or beast. So why then did Christ's rock stand there before him and forbid him entry to the kingdom of the Lord? Your record's not exactly untoward, but everything you did was in the name of that poor carpenter who rose to fame as Mary's groom. In your devotion, you forgot the Lord, his mother, and a slew of other saints. I'm sorry, but I won't just let you in. I really think you don't deserve admission to this holy place. With tears of anger rolling down his face, the man replied, I understand, but since I've come this far, I hope I can convince you to at least let me meet Joseph, who was my devotion's aim. I asked for 2 minutes, and that is all. St. Peter thought that suitable, and had St. Joseph brought out to the gate. The Holy Family's head then saw the man, and with excitement said, Hey, it's my most devoted devotee. I'm glad you made it. Please come in and be at peace with us in paradise. This guy, he jabbed a thumb at Peter with a sigh, told me that I'm not welcome to come in. How could that be? Did you commit some sin that I'm not aware of? No, he said, the problem is that I forgot to spread my prayers among the saints while down below. Oh, what does all that matter? You did so much good, St. Joseph said. Of course you can come in. St. Peter stood before the man unmoved and said, I really must insist. Your man just didn't make it on the list. With that, a raucous argument ensued that threatened to devolve into a feud between the blessed saints until, grown bored of squabbling, Joseph said unto the Lord of Heaven's gate, Think long about this ban, my friend, and know I have a counterplan. Either you let the man come in, or I will take my wife, her boy, and then we'll fly away, just as we did from Bethlehem. I'll make a brand new paradise with them. St. Peter heard these words with great dismay, and let the man come in that very day. All right, now from heaven, we go into the depths of hell for the next two poems. This first one is a serious one, and it's an experiment in translation. So I like to translate from Italian as well as from a variety of dialects spoken throughout the Italian peninsula. This is a scene from the Divine Comedy by Dante, and it's the moment in which he encounters the three-headed dog Cerberus. Only instead of rendering it into terza rima or blank verse, as is most common for translators of Dante, I opted for alliterative verse, like that, like what was common in Old Norse and Old English poetry. So, in case you're wondering, this is Inferno, Canto 6. That's where it is. Hellhound. Whichever way I walk or turn, I see the sufferings of more sufferers. Cold rain, cursed and heavy, ceaselessly falls in this circle of hell. Massive hailstones, murky water, and snow spill from a dark sky, pouring across the putrid earth. The strange beast, Hydra's brother, barks harshly from hound-like throats at the foul folk sunk in the filth. His eyes are blood red, his beard is greasy, his belly is broad, his claws like blades. He scratches and slashes and slices the shades. The wretched ones howl like dogs and hide one side while the other suffers the rain. Those sinners turn and twist endlessly. When Typhon's son saw us, he spread his jaws, showed his fangs, shook with fury. My guide grabbed dirt from the ground and flung fistfuls into the frenzied maws. And like a starving dog, hysterically yapping that quiets when food finally comes, focusing on the task of filling its belly, so did the filthy faces of the fiend Cerberus. Okay, the next hellish poem I have for you is light verse. A couple of years ago, I was doing some research on the concept of limbo, which Dante describes in the Divine Comedy as the place where good, unbaptized people go. So righteous non-Christians as well as babies. And it is situated at the very top of hell, so it's the least bad part of hell, and it's just outside the first river of hell, which is the Styx. And like any good researcher, I started with the Wikipedia page on the subject. I was reading about some statements made by the Catholic Church leadership in the early 2000s that seemed to suggest that limbo is not as sure of a possibility for Catholics as Dante led his readers to believe. These statements led to the public feeling that the Catholic Church's position on limbo had been changed. And when I was looking through Wikipedia's sources, I stumbled across an article from the New York Times entitled "Pope Closes Limbo," which I thought was just a super funny title, and decided to write a poem to go along with it. So in this poem, I imagine some of Limbo's famous inhabitants, according to Dante, finding out that the Pope, back on Earth, has evicted everyone from Limbo and is shutting the whole place down. So this is in the voice of one of those famous Limbo dwellers. Pope closes Limbo. Hey, Virgil, brother, did you hear the news? I read about it in the Border Times. I heard they're sending demolition crews. Although we have been cleared of any crimes, the Pope is closing up our neighborhood. We have to leave and find some other place to live or die or be dead in. Could you call your lady friend, see if there's space up with the saints for some of us to stay? Not for eternity, you know, but just until we figure something out. We'll pay rent or whatever. We're the upper crust of hell society, not just some trash tossed out into the dump. That's got to count for something, right? Come on. I know it's brash to ask, but what else can we do? The mount to heaven can't be all that hard to climb. We'll take one of those angel boats. I heard that they leave from Rome each day at the same time, and they go so fast the sky is blurred and you can barely see the world pass by. Now that I mention it, I heard the Greeks are packing up and heading out to try and find Elysium. And Homer speaks of breaking into hell to liberate Odysseus so he can be their guide across the Middle Sea, out through the Strait of Hercules. And they'll give us a ride, they said, if we decide we want to tag along. I'm not sure, though. Their plan seems crazy. Also, I haven't even packed a bag, and they'll be leaving soon. Maybe I'm lazy, or I don't know. I just don't want to go. We live here. It's our home. Don't you agree? I mentioned it to Ovid, and you know him. He says times are changing, so should we. But Lucan, on the other hand, is staying. He thinks the Greeks are daring, but afraid, and fear won't be his master. Now he's praying with Vyasa and Valmiki and the shades from India. They hope, if they trust God, they will be born again, new lives on earth. Our sages said the same, but it is odd. Why hasn't anyone yet had rebirth if that is possible? I don't believe that stuff. I think this afterlife is all we get. So anyway, we have to leave. I think if we don't go, that they'll just haul us out against our will and put us in that trashy neighborhood across the river. We can't stay here. It's time that we begin to make some plans. Back to your friend. Just give her a call and ask. Tell her we're refugees, or that we're soon to be, just like the Lord was as a kid. Remember to say please. There's no other place we can afford. I think that you should ask her right away. Go on and call her now. Let's seize the day. Okay, so now for another serious poem. This one is about a quiet moment with my daughter. Above the fire. Why does the air above the fire dance? I tell my daughter tales of molecules that spin like dervishes lost in a trance. Moonbeams that are obedient to rules which pull them down their paths through atmospheres, refracting over flames like precious jewels. How many little girls down through the years, over millennia of fire-making, have likewise wondered why the light adheres to such strange patterns, doesn't tire making angular paintings in the air each day. How many staring at a pyre, making obeisance to small gods of wood and clay, mused on the nature of what is and what has been. What did the Stone Age father say as he gazed at the primal blaze that cut his world in two, split dark from light and beast from man? What stories did he tell? We glut ourselves on marshmallows, each bite a feast, bestowed by the great fire gods who sigh within our rusting pit. Then we look east and watch infernos whirl across the sky. Okay, so now I'm going to finish with two more light verse poems. The first one is dedicated to everyone, probably most of you, who, like me, owns more books than they will ever be able to read in their lifetime. To read. There are so many books to read. They fill the shelves of libraries and stores across the world, as well as every empty space inside my house. The stacks grow year by year. They rise like zombie corpses on my desk, my couch, and all across the floor. Each begs to sink its dusty claws into my brain. I crack their spines, flip through their crumbling pages, and try to pick which ones I'll give new life. There are too many books to read. I see those volumes and I know I'll never have the time I need to finish even just the ones I own. They cry out from my shelves, collected poems and stories of the dead, entreating me to resurrect their souls. And that is just the famous literature. Great forests have been razed so I could buy large piles of science fiction, fantasy, detective novels, politics, and physics, selections of the best-known ologies, a sampling of the most loved ographies, and sprinkles of my favorite osophies, all sit in sullen silence and await the hoped for yet unlikely future date when I will find the time I need to read. Okay, this last poem has always been a crowd favorite. It is actually the first light verse poem that I ever wrote, and it's about two famous medieval Italian poets, Dante and Petrarch. So most of you already know, so a little bit of background. So most of you already know that Dante is famous for writing the Divine Comedy. What many people don't know is that Petrarch was once asked what he thought about it, because it was super popular already. And he claimed to have not read it. He said he didn't want to be influenced by it. So this poem is Petrarch explaining himself. And just a couple of notes on Dante, if you're not familiar. He was the first great poet to write in Italian, known then as the vulgar tongue rather than Latin. He also lived most of his adult life in exile for political reasons, and he greatly missed the bread of his native Florence, which was famously made without salt. I've tried it before. It's not great, as you can imagine, most things without salt. But people in Florence really like it because it's their bread, and he was one of them. He also wrote a lot about a woman named Beatrice Portinari in his most famous works, so she comes up here too, so just so you're aware. And because Petrarch was a generation younger than Dante, I decided to have Petrarch speaking the voice and using the slang of our current youngest adult generation. So this is the Gen Z Petrarch. Okay, Petrarch on not reading Dante. I'm not the kind of guy who likes to read that trendy stuff the masses talk about. His popularity gets on my nerves. The comedy was his big thing, and no, I haven't read it. Well, not all of it. I skimmed a few lines and was not impressed. But I have heard enough performances to last an afterlife. Talk about hell. His big mistake, of course, was ditching Latin. I mean, he knew the Roman language well and still wrote in the vulgar tongue, despite its problems. Yeah, I get it, it's our language, but it's a little basic, am I right? The irony is, I appreciate tradition better than he ever did. But what can you expect from someone born in the Dark Ages? Times have changed, my dude. What else? His stuff was just so long. I mean, 100 cantos for one poem. And then that Terza Rima stuff, it's like, okay, boomer, we get it. You're good at rhymes. Not like it's hard in Tuscan, though, just saying. I only met the guy one time. He seemed a little extra. You know what I mean. I heard him blubbering about the bread, that saltless stuff that people eat in Florence. It's nasty, man. I basically grew up in Avignon, where both the poetry and the cuisine are bussin', unlike here. And Dante had, if I remember right, that weird obsession with the Portinari chick. Pretty cringe. And kind of sus, you know? I've got to speak my truth. Got to be brave. As modern poets go, he's not my fave. And that concludes my reading. Thank you again to Christopher for inviting me and to all of you for being here to listen.
That was great.
No kidding. That was hysterical.
Bravo.